Thousands of years ago, there was no business, and the world knew peace. But then, one fateful day, somebody traded something of their own for something of a different person's. This ancient human unknowingly just bartered, kickstarting the long, complex, and insane world of business and marketing. Before long, currency was invented to make things easier. Some people got really good at specific things, and they sold those goods and services, creating the very first businesses. Businesses were getting bigger, faster. They were getting more industrial, more separated from the people and communities they were selling to. They became commodities, oddities, spectacles. And one of these maniacs created a mascot. Whether it was on purpose, or maybe you opened a tavern and a cat walked in and now you're the Cat Tavern. But whoever it was, they said to hell with a recognizable brand name or logo. We'll have a being, a creature that represents what we do. It will likely forever remain unknown what the very first mascot was. But what really launched them into the stratosphere was three things, all at once. In America, the 1900s saw a massive boom in business, which created a market for mascots. In Japan, a similar boom was happening too, but this was strengthened twofold by the rising popularity of the kawaii art movement. Adults interacting with cutesy media has been normalized there for decades, and this leads to thousands of businesses, big and small, adopting yuruchara, or mascot characters. And lastly, both of these countries are trying, to various degrees of success, to perfect the education system. And for both, a part of that was, well, I'm sure you can guess. Where there's money, there are mascots. But mascots aren't a symptom of capitalism. Well, not all of them. What these characters really are is a mission. I'm Jallomoth, the curator of all things curious, and I'm very excited because today we're going to be talking about my favorite thing in the world: mascots. A mascot is an embodiment of a mission, a literal personification of a group's drive to raise money, awareness, or anything else important to them. They can be cute, strange, or just plain memorable to cement an image in people's minds. Another thing mascots happen to be is vague. The definition of mascot is not super well defined, and is something that we'll be grappling with this entire series. Basically, a mascot is anything that represents anything. As a mascot myself, it really felt like this video idea was calling out to me. I've been trying to script for days and Domo's been whispering to my ass like the Green Goblin mask. I gotta know, who is the greatest mascot of all time? Part 1. At this point, I know what you might be asking. Jallo, why are there 45 characters already slowly fading in via the film dissolve effect in Premiere Pro? The truth is, I already have 2 videos on my channel discussing similar topics, both the McDonald's characters tier list and the best and worst of yuruchara. It would be retreading old water to discuss these all again, so if you want to see my justifications for any of this, you can go check those out now. They're sort of prequels to this video, but it doesn't really matter when you watch them. I'll leave them down in the description if you want to throw them in your watch later or something. But I had such a great time discussing Japan's characters that I feel like it's just time to open the floodgates. How did Japan's mascots stack up to America's or other countries, restaurants, games, sports teams, YouTubers? There are mascots everywhere for those with eyes to see them. Something else you may be seeing is the frankly ridiculous amount of tiers there are on this list. But I think for the first time, this many letters was necessary. There's a lot of degrees of separation here in quality, and I truthfully need each and every one of these, especially with how full they're going to get in subsequent parts. Since we have 45 mascots up on the wall, let's finish out this 100 and do 55 more. Then, in episode 2 of this series, we could do 50 more. If this video does really well, I'll do 100 more in a massive video. Now, if you're a returning viewer to my channel, you're probably begging me to do any part 2 at this point, because it seems like I'm allergic to them. But I gotta say, this one has higher odds than the rest of becoming real, even if it doesn't get received too well, because the world of mascots is something I'm extraordinarily interested in. Man, this intro is crazy long. It's still like half the length of a Wendigoon intro though. Holy hell, man. I would have talked about his mascot in this video, but I'm trying to have a good time, okay? So, without further ado, let's get into it. But where in the world do we start? Well, one place comes to mind. Ham Kakarichu is the mascot for Ito Ham, a processed meat company from Hyogo. What sets Kakariko up for success is that his cute, sleepy face isn't just a face, it's text that spells ham. Japan makes it look so easy. Some random piece of sliced ham sitting in a bento box is randomly better than like 90% of the game. A tier. I must say, most of these Yuduchara I only know because of a website called mondomascots.com. So big thanks to Chris from Mondo Mascots for blogging about these so that English speakers can learn more about them. Something very big in Japan aside from mascots is school. And in such an education-focused place, something that became an insanely big market was stationery production. Sanex, not to be confused with Sanrio, is a company who makes school supplies, and they struck gold when employee Aki Kondo came up with Rilakuma. You see, Sanex workers were tasked with creating one character a month, and Aki decided a chill bear would be a super cute idea. Relaxu, relax, plus Kuma, bear, equals Rilakuma. Here's my Rilakuma. Her name is Rilakuma Thurman, and I keep her in a hot sauce box next to Nathan Fielder. In my biased opinion, this belongs at the top. But in reality, I think it's just not there yet. A lot of mascots have been around since the 70s or 80s. I think Rilakuma just needs a little bit more time to cook. I'll put them at the very top of S, as close as you can get to greatness without truly touching it. Rilakuma is in a big phase of its existence right now, having a major explosion in popularity in the US and only growing more in Japan. Sort of similar to the Domo boom of 2009, which, fun fact, fixed the recession. Give it 10, 20 more years and I'm sure Rilakuma will earn the clout that it needs to be S+, but here it lies for now. Sometimes, something happens where a mascot fundamentally breaks the rules of what a good mascot should be, but their vibe is so good that it doesn't even matter. A great example to me would be this guy, Kuroshio-kun, the mascot for the entire Kochi prefecture. He's so cute that I can honestly forgive him for having no clue what he is. Maybe the illustrated version of the character is clearer. Let's take a look at that. Oh. What do you think this is, if you had to guess? The answer is a north-flowing Pacific Ocean current, of course. But Kuroshio is still immensely popular in his region, and I can absolutely see why. He's adorable, and do you really need much else? A. Uji-chan here is a wonderfully unique character. She's the mascot for Usa, a place in Tosa City, which is a place in Kochi Prefecture, which is a place in Japan. This must be something that people get wrong quite frequently, as the mascot is just the entire Shikoku region of Japan with a big red arrow pointing to USA. Maybe this confusion comes from USA being similar to USA? Either way, something about this is hilarious to me. It's practically mascot clickbait, it's a bit of an inside joke, and her face. This face deserves an award all to itself. I have a feeling that by the end, this tier list will end up a little top-heavy because, one, since it's the first episode, I'm having some fun looking at a lot of mascots I tend to already like, and two, I have a tendency to like mascots in general, but there's a special place in my heart for ones like Uji-chan, and that place is B tier. Is his name really Bougie? Welcome to my heart, Bougie. I love you. This grumpy rock is supposed to be a boundary stone, which is a small local landmark in the town of Taishi in Hyogo, Japan. Oh, him and Hammy are neighbors. The only thing keeping this out of A is that the little fella being a rock means that the person in the costume is always just kinda sitting there. They don't even really have to have a person in there, do they? But when all the mascots hear the call of the wild and migrate back to whence they came, Bougie will be left behind, eroding forevermore. B tier. There are plenty of mascots that could earn the title of most divisive, but a good contender would definitely be Chii-Tan. You may know Chii-Tan already for their escapades on social media, but they have quite a history, one that began all the way back in 2013. This is the Kochi Prefecture, and here, in a beautiful place called Susaki, they're unveiling their new official mascot. Shinjo-kun, the extinct river otter, adorned with a hot pot nebuyaki hat. Shinjo, his name, is also the name of the river he comes from, which is where the last known sighting of the extinct Japanese river otter was. Something I surprisingly have never touched on is that what I'm doing here today on your screen is not a new practice. Japan has local all the way to national mascot competitions, and Shinjo-kun took it all the way when he won the Yuduchara Grand Prix back in 2016. This is a super prestigious thing, the first winner in 2011 being Kumaimon. It doesn't look like they've held one since COVID, but hey, that just means there's an opening in the market for ranking these suckers. I really like Shinjo. I think he's the unsung hero of this little story. I think he's an A tier for his influence and his accolades alone. In recent years, he's stopped being in the spotlight as much, taking up DJing and competitive Street Fighter V in the time since 2019. But there's a reason for this absence. And that's that 2 years prior to him falling off, in 2017, Japan decided to employ a real otter. This is the Asian small-clawed otter named Chiitan, and the group managing her claimed her to be the honorary tourism ambassador of Susaki, being somewhat of a spiritual little sister to Shinjo. Chiitan quickly rose to popularity because of local broadcasting, and before Christmas, Chiitan had become a full-fledged Yuduchara with her own costume. This is Chiitan, not to be confused with Chiitan or the company that manages both, Chiitan. Chiitan is a self-proclaimed genderless 0-year-old fairy baby. They wear a cute little turtle for a hat and are very outgoing and adventurous. They took social media by storm, garnering about 1 million Twitter followers in just a single year. Much of this was from buying ad space, which made them divisive online. Some saw Chiitan as intrusive or annoying, but this ad is 100 times cooler and less perverted or bigoted than every other ad on Twitter, so I and many others welcomed these posts. In most of Chiitan's videos, they are being pretty clinically insane, downright violent, and just generally entertaining. It was slapstick. Whoever was in this costume just happened to be a student of Johnny Knoxville, purposefully getting hurt as a big spectacle. Nobody hated this more than the traditional elderly people living in Susaki. People were now confusing Chiitan for her sweet older brother Shinjo, sullying both of their reputations. The wacky silly younger sibling has now gotten them both into some deep water. Susaki was so worried about their darling Shinjo's reputation that they decided to fire Chiitan. Not just the mascot, but the real otter that the mascot was based off of. The character Chii-Tan was now banned from doing the job it was created to do. Chii-Tan's story is one of the most interesting things to come from mascot history in the last decade for sure. What happens when a mascot and what they're advertising become divorced? A lesser mascot would have hung up the suit, but Chii-Tan pivoted. If they couldn't be the silly, physical embodiment of a tourism ambassador otter, they would just have to be something else. Japan's craziest mascot. Chii-Tan was a skateboarder, an evil pro wrestler, a mermaid, a parent, an astronaut, a dancer, the Joker, the self-proclaimed Japanese Jackson 5, a samurai, a soccer king, a DJ, a boxer, a rocket golfer, arrested, destroying the city. Chii-Tan is something that no other Yuduchara is. Free. These creatures are brought to life just to sell something. And then there's Chii-Tan. Someone who has become a beacon of childlike wonder, an embodiment of the freedom of doing whatever you want in this world. Being silly, being a kid, getting hurt, getting dirty. Shout out to the people who have to clean this filthy thing, by the way, they're the true heroes. At the end of the day, Yotsuba Koiwai would love Chii-Tan, and that's what I love about Chii-Tan. They accidentally stumbled into being one of the most profoundly important mascots of all time, and that's just like them. And to do it, they had to lose everything. Their entire purpose. The place they were meant to be. But now, their new purpose is so much more important. To remind the overworked, underpaid people of Japan to just live a little bit. S+, top of the list. I'm sorry, Mac, your throne was already gone once a real Yuduchara stepped to the plate. And if you can believe it, we've got an even bigger star up next. He may not look it at first glance, but Domo here is the most influential mascot of the day. This video and quite a few others on this channel wouldn't exist if it weren't for him. Every American over the age of like 18 knows who Domo is. You've seen his face on a XXL t-shirt, or a snapback, or a toaster, or a sign at Target or 7-Eleven. Back in 2010, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing this guy. He was in memes, on TV, in our stores, our homes. And the craziest thing is, more than 99% of people had no idea who Domo was or what he was advertising. Domo is the mascot for NHK, or Japan's broadcasting system. His name, Domo, can mean many things in Japanese. Domo can mean hello. very, thank you, sorry, and much, much more, all depending on context. So a common thing to hear in Japan is people on the phone saying domo, domo domo, 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 and so on. So Neo-Goda used this as inspiration to make his mascot pitch to the NHK company. A little guy that just says domo. For context, Goda was also a stop-motion animator and used his character to make cute little short films to be aired on the network. These gained immense popularity in Japan, but seemingly an even bigger cult following in the US. If you want to learn more about Domo's journey to and dominance of the US Yudu Chara scene, there's a great video by Jack the Artisan called Whatever Happened to Domo-kun, which I'll link down below. Needless to say, Domo is an S+. More than that, he's the highest mascot on the board so far, and potentially all time. Who knows if I would have even gotten into Mactonite when I found out about him, if it weren't for the influence that Domo had on my life in the early 2010s. Domo really deserves his own video, and if you haven't already, I would at least recommend going and checking out the Domo short films, which I'm pretty sure are all just floating around YouTube still. Third in a row? Jeez, I mean, what am I supposed to do though? Lie? S+. You're seriously gonna make me explain? Okay, just this once. To be truthful, I don't know if we'll come across many more S+'s today. The upper echelon of mascotdom has a pretty high floor. Nobody else is doing it quite like Pepsi Man, and I hate to be that guy, but nobody's doing it like Japan. Despite looking quite strange, Pepsi Man is one of the quintessential Yudu Chara to me, and one of the best mascots to ever do it. He was so big that he got a game. And not no shit-ass game like Captain Crunch and Chester Cheetah, no, he got an awesome, full-fledged PlayStation title. He was so big he had spin-off characters. His backstory is that he was a scientist that transformed into Pepsi Man by coming into contact with quote-unquote holy Pepsi. My jaw is on the floor. Something so intriguing to me is that Pepsi Man was not made to be a Japanese mascot. He was made to be an American superhero. He's got a chain, his commercials were filmed in Brooklyn, he has that classic horrifying American Slender Man mouth, and the hardest theme song of any fictional character ever created. He's got it all. He's got this raw Americana vibe to him, and whenever Japanese companies appeal to American patriots, wonderful, magical things happen. If you're thirsty for a deep dive on Pepsi Man, Devnol's video, The Secret History of Pepsi Man, is the video for you. I got to learn practically everything about the character, like the fact that he talks in a worse American accent than a voice actor from South Park. Ima Pepsi Cola kara big chance. Kono shibore Corvette ga atarimasu. This is the best thing in the world. I cannot believe how wrong I was about there being no more S+'s. I'm just gonna hold my tongue from here on out. 4 in a row! We are starting strong today. What do I even say about Hello Kitty though? Is she the most famous mascot ever? In notoriety, not many rival her. Did you know Hello Kitty isn't a cat, by the way? Yeah, this is probably common knowledge for all the Sanrio fans out there, but the brand is steadfast in maintaining the narrative that Hello Kitty is not a cat at all, but a girl from England who just happens to look like that. Sanrio lead designer Yuko Yamaguchi says, "I designed her to be a girl. She has a pet named Charmy Kitty. I don't understand why Hello Kitty is perceived as a cat." Fuck man, I don't know, it could be anything. Yuko then goes on to give context about the mid-70s, saying many Japanese girls were dreaming of Britain at the time. It was the place of fairy tales, which, quote, was why Hello Kitty was conceived to be a British human girl. To be truthful, that context makes me like her a little less, in all honesty, but if I put her anywhere else, I think my head would be on a spike 2 miles down the road before I could ever even have the chance to edit this video. So I think S+ is gonna have to be where she ends up. Hello Kitty is more than influential, being a big driving force in Japan's obsession with all things kawaii in the last 50 or so years. But I think if we keep talking about Yudu Chara, this tier list is gonna fall over from being so top-heavy. So I think it's finally time we took a look at some mascots from the land of opportunity, shall we? Starting with a heavy hitter. I have a feeling Snoop is gonna be a little contentious, but hear me out. Even if you think Snoopy isn't the mascot of the Peanuts comics, maybe you think it's Charlie Brown himself, that doesn't really matter because Snoopy is still the mascot for dozens of businesses nationwide across America. I don't know if Charles Schulz is just loose-gripped about Snoopy's rights, but everything from MetLife Insurance to NASA uses this beagle as their image. My absolute favorites, though, are the Midwest amusement parks Kings Island and Cedar Point, respectively.
Camp Snoopy at Cedar Point, voted best park in the world. You'll never want to go home. Cedar Point!
This little kiddie park is what got me into roller coasters. I know 5 S+'s back-to-back is actually criminal, but I can't help myself. There's no way the Red Baron deserves anything shy of the best. If you don't like the Peanuts, you were clearly not a depressed enough child. I'm sorry that you had too good of a childhood. C and N were Cartoon Network's genius attempt at mascots, and despite it seeming like the station has kind of retired these guys as of late, it was always a pleasure to see them on TV whenever I did.
He never gets the TV.
Never! A little to the right. Oh, please, no! Have some adventure time on me, buddy.
Space princesses. Thanks.
I'm gonna give C and N a spot in the middle of A tier, because they were funny, and I've got nothing bad to say about them. If you want to know more about them, this guy Lane uploaded a really informative and fun video covering them in about as much detail as he possibly could. But I love how C and N represent the whole checkered era of Cartoon Network, and I think that Nickelodeon, Disney, and every other kids channel could have really benefited from having a fun character not tied to any of their IPs that they're airing. That way, it feels timeless. Good job, CN. Mr. Met is arguably the biggest mascot in sports. He does his job quite well, and believe me, guy with big felt thing on his head is definitely my favorite genre of mascot, but I think he's missing something crucial, and I don't quite know what it is. This face of his, unchanging as it may be, manages to convey like at least 50 emotions, but practically all of them are sinister. I'm gonna have to say B at minimum just on principle because I think he's the first baseball mascot ever, but Mr. Met is earning exactly 0 style points.
Mr. Met has been on the verge of suicide.
Whoa, mama. I think all it took for me to like this character was for it to be a woman. This is what the design was missing. High A tier. I was so excited about an alien MLB mascot, and you give me this. Man, we were on a roll. We haven't even had a C tier yet. They tried to tie Orbit's design together by making it a baseball-themed alien, but that just makes it confusing. I know that sometimes I like the ones that make me ask questions, but this one just kind of pisses me off. I don't like his nose. At least he gave us that one meme, but like, he got so overshadowed that nobody even remembers that it was him. So, I'm not quite sure why, but I wanted to hate the Philly Fanatic. Something about it was just off to me, and I can't quite put my finger on it. To be quite frank, sports mascots are the characters that I know the absolute least about. One of the first things I learned about the Fanatic, though, was that he was created by a woman named Bonnie Erickson, who's the same woman behind the design of Miss Piggy, which explains its very Muppety design. The reason he was created in the first place was A, to rival the San Diego Chicken, who was the Padres mascot, and B, to replace their old boring mascots Phil and Phyllis, 2 colonial children. In 2008, the Fanatic was voted Best Mascot Ever by Sports Illustrated Kids. I'll forgive them just this once, because they did have the limited world of sports mascots to choose from, and were dumb kids. But he's not very close to the best in my eyes. Created by a woman is a W though, and so is replacing those stupid British kids. Alex Trebek once told the contestants on a 2019 episode of Jeopardy that he was, quote,
I'm not a big fan of the Philly Fanatic.
Okay.
So I guess I'm not alone at least. I'll give it the top of B though, because I know that it is widely loved. Is that high enough for people not to yell at me though? I guess I'll find out. What's up with Philadelphia and conjuring up these strangest beasts the East has to offer? Gritty here is the face of the Philadelphia Flyers hockey team. Gritty's edgy personality and temperamental attitude have allowed him to push the envelope for what is possible or acceptable for a team mascot. That was one of only 3 sentences about him on the Flyers' own website. This orange-blooded maniac looks pretty OG, but he was introduced in 2018, just 6 years— 6? 6 years ago? Wow. Hockey can be a pretty fast and brutal sport, so I guess I'm glad he has an abrasive and purposefully unsettling design. And hey, in just his first few years of existence, he's already been in Family Guy and It's Always Sunny. Some may call him an industry plant, I'm just gonna stick with calling him B tier, at least for now. The mascot world changes, people, and if something happens or my opinion changes, I'll reflect that on the tier list in later parts. So hey, if you think I've been unfair somewhere, call me out. I wanna hear your bias. Albert and Alberta the alligators are mascots for the University of the Florida Gators, and I couldn't help but smile when I saw them. I didn't know much, but they've quickly become one of my favorite college football mascots. I think that there's like thousands though that I haven't seen, so who knows if it'll stay that way. The first draft of this mascot doesn't look all too good, but it looks a whole lot better when you realize this replaced them bringing in an actual alligator into the stadium because Florida. Albert and his lovely wife are going to be sitting pretty in A tier for me. I mean, the man even got the honor of being put in a chokehold by Steve Irwin. You don't see that happening to the Philly Fanatic now, do ya? Let's do one more sports mascot before we head over to food. This is an illustration done in a book by Preston Blair in 1980, a series of references for a cartoon bulldog. Blair worked on Tom and Jerry if you're getting heavy Spike vibes from this. But you wouldn't be wrong if you recognize this bulldog as the mascot for the University of Redlands, California, or Allen Hancock College, Bellevue College, San Mateo, Barton, James Madison. I could list names for 2 hours and only have to stop because I have a small bladder. My preschool had this mascot, and there's a good chance you might have had this mascot at one point or another too. I don't know if anyone out there has ever done a real, serious deep dive into just how prolific Preston Blair's bulldog would become. It'd be something that could make an interesting full video for sure. Despite how generic this design has become, I think that's actually a testament to how widespread, influential, and important this design became. It was plagiarized and plagiarized and plagiarized some more, and now Blair's design has just sort of sublimated into the ether. That level of clout is surely worth an A tier. Sorry to all the old heads out there, but Count Chocula sucks. The Count was the start of the entire line of monster cereals, and my whole life I've known without ever even buying a box of this stuff that it's sugar cardboard. I seriously think Dracula could have never existed, and Count Chocula would still feel lame and derivative. Honestly, I love Boo Berry. I think he's cute. But, General Mills? What's this? And what's this? And this one right here? Yeah, that inconsistency is really going to cost you. I feel a little out of my element, to be real with you guys. The Count is famous enough to be in the mainstream, and I have personal lore with Boo Berry, being of course the Totally Obsessed episode, but since that's my only real foot in this race, I kind of have beef with Frankenberry, if anything.
Frankenberry! You're gonna fry!
The Boo Berry song has a message of death. Basically.
At the end of the day, this is an okay mascot. I'm so unbothered by Frank here that I think C is the only appropriate place for him. I'm tempted to drop Fruit Brute down to the loser tier simply because it flopped so hard. Some people only know it as that one cereal that the dealer in Pulp Fiction was eating. I know that because I'm some people. But it's not about the product, it's about the character. And now that I'm sitting down and looking at the mascots side by side, Fruit Brute is definitely my favorite. I don't think he's as cool as Boo Berry necessarily, but I just relate to him more. I look like this. Werewolf is automatically like an instant point. Definitely one of the coolest classic monsters, up there with Dracula and the Invisible Man. But like I said, Count Chocula sucks. I mean, come on dude, look at his overalls. I gotta say A at least, I'm sorry. He goes so hard. I'm tempted to say S just cause his fit is hard, but people would probably rip me alive for putting it higher than Boo Berry. Plus his name probably could have used some more workshopping. Okay, this is the one nobody cares about, surely. I had no idea this was even a thing. It has the least iconic design by far, his name is an unmemorable mouthful, and let's be honest, it should have been a girl. We're finally putting something in E tier because Fruity Yummy Mummy is worse than bad. He's boring. There's a lot of mascots that I would have loved to talk about instead of this slot being taken up by this dude. Hey, they finally made a girl one! And it only took them 52 years. Carmela was introduced in 2023, and while I do like the idea of a goth zombie girl cereal, I think they really fumbled her name. After Frankenberry, like, they could not come up with a good name to save their lives. You want her to be a modern hit, but typecast her monster as Creeper? What is this, Scooby-Doo? Nobody was even using that word in the 70s when people actually ate this shit. C tier. I get that they had to alliterate the type of monster that she is with her name that also has to be a play on an ingredient, but like, this was not the move. I don't know if it's just how I'm picking, but I'm noticing a serious lack of female mascots in the American mascot scene that aren't just a girl version of a boy mascot. I mean, there definitely isn't none, but there's a huge gap, especially in sports and kind of food too. It's a real shame. Yo, the Icy Bear? What's his name? Oh, the Icy Bear? Cool. Okay, so this guy is pretty much always auraless, but truthfully, the art on the actual icy cups is one of the hardest images of all time. This truthfully deserves a B tier easily. Just try to avert your eyes from any other promotional material with him in it. In the early 90s, there was a tremendous boom of mascot-themed video games. Ronald McDonald games, Captain Crunch games, Chester Cheetah games, and 7-Up decided that they needed in on this mascot cash grab shitstorm. So they took the obvious step of turning the red circle in their logo into a little dude. Cool Spot. I have no idea why they gave him this insane name. It sounds like a JoJo stand. Maybe like, this hits the spot kind of thing. I don't know, but I love it. Honestly, it reminds me of Mac Tonight, just a cool-ass thing with a cool-ass name and some sunglasses. Around this time, 7-Up was really trying to separate itself from the other sodas by seeming different, healthy, clear. The Uncola. So I think that's why they went out of their way to make their OC sort of wacky, something that doesn't even talk, but it paid off and then some. Cool Spot will go down in history as one of the coolest cult classic ad mascots of all time. I think one of the best things that you can do with your character is make them appealing, of course, but also make them weird. Something a little vague and amorphous with room for interpretation and conversation. Keep it simple, yet bizarre. Plus, I'm pretty sure his games are like actually good, unlike 95% of fast food games from the time. And dude, when he hits that pose, that is the same level of aura as the Sonic pose, and you can't even lie. Solid, easy S tier. Okay, this one's gonna take some explaining. Max Headroom was an incredibly interesting character on British TV in the mid-80s. He was sort of like the UK's answer to things like MTV. He hosted funny bumpers between programs. He's one of those ones that could 100% have his own full video. There's that much esoteric lore here, and that's not even mentioning the hijacking incident. Max was played by actor Matt Frewer, talking like a robot in a plastic suit with fake hair and a prosthetic face. All of this was to convince the people that Max Headroom was a real-time AI presenter in 1985, which some people apparently believed.
Have you noticed everything's getting smaller? Take stereo, for example. This little beauty here is a compact disc player. CDP. Naturally, it costs a lot of do-re.
But something else that was happening in the mid-80s was New Coke. Potentially my favorite YouTuber of all time is a man called Emplemon. This guy has videos about NASCAR that have made me cry at multiple different points in the video on rewatch. He has a phenomenal video going over the entire series of events regarding this ad campaign, which will of course be in the description, but the short and sweet of it is that Coke was beginning to slip in popularity and was actually at risk of losing to Pepsi in sales because of their incredibly successful campaigning in the 80s. This was something that never happened. Coke had so much of a monopoly at the time that you'll frequently to this day hear people use Coke as a word for any cola. But this was shaken up for the first time in the 80s. It was an all-out cola war. And in trying to dig themselves out of this hole they were in, Coke made a big move by taking their soda off the shelves and replacing it with something called New Coke, later renamed to Coke, then Coke 2. It was a whole thing. The turmoil only lasted about 80 days though, because hundreds of thousands of people literally protested. People got out and publicized that they hated this new taste. Keep in mind, Coca-Cola wasn't just big, it was the biggest thing in the world. And because they practically ruined their own reputation and were losing even faster to Pepsi now, they decided to bring back the old formula, called it Coca-Cola Classic, and now they had a brand new problem. How do we market this drink nobody wants? Their answer, for some reason, was Max Headroom.
Look, I don't give a damn whose job it is. Just do it, okay? Oh, thank you.
Here's where I ask you a question. Does this count as a mascot? A mascot is supposed to be something that symbolizes the brand or brings luck to the brand, but does Max even do that? Well, kind of. I mean, he was chosen for a reason. The whole New Coke campaign at the time kind of reflected his new age pessimism and overall quirkiness.
Only the other day I heard someone say, he's nothing but a robot, covered in makeup. Talks a lot of nonsense. What a way to talk about the President of America.
Why Coke was trying to be edgy in the first place, I don't know, but something massive to come out of this was Mac Tonight. I brought this up briefly in my McDonald's video, but Mac Tonight was crafted specifically to recreate the hype of the cult classic phenom that was Max Headroom. He's kind of the king of alt and cult classic mascots in general, and him being different from everyone else in many ways almost seems fitting in a way. Also, if you want to watch one of the greatest videos ever uploaded to this platform in history, go watch Emplemon's video called Mac Tonight. Afterwards, I think you'll understand why Mac was our first S+. But But really, Max is such an oddity, and as someone dedicated to curating the curious, I can't help but give him an A tier at least. Now, if he actually would have revived New Coke, successfully somehow saving that doomed ship, he would have clipped all the way into S+ tier. But let's be honest, he had no right to be a mascot to begin with. And that, to me, is kind of what makes him so legendary.
This is Max Headroom.
Charles Entertainment Cheese, also known as Chucky, actually has kind of an interesting story behind him. Okay, so get this. The founder of Atari wants to open a restaurant with games in it. And at a random conference in Orlando, he comes across someone selling costumes of characters. He picks up one of what he thinks is a coyote costume, and upon getting home and excitedly opening it, realizes that it was a rat. Big pink tail and everything. So he shook his head and said, well, there goes Coyote Pizza, guess we're opening Rick Rats. But then, rightfully so, everyone around him said naming your pizzeria after a rat is a dumb idea, Nolan. So he scratched his head, called him Chuck E. Cheese, and wiped his hands with it. Just kept the rat. Mice like cheese, so I guess that's why it stuck around, but he could have so easily changed the animal once he franchised this shit and nobody would have known. By the way, for all my foreign viewers, Chuck E. Cheese is like a children's restaurant, arcade, play place thing, basically. Yes, they have a full bar with beer on tap. And yes, they have at least 5 conspiracy theories about the legitimacy and health concerns of their pizza. It is America after all. I'm sure you've at least heard of it or something tangentially similar. I can't believe I have to outright say it, but a rat is a bad pizza mascot. This sucks. It feels like satire. I'll give Chuck a C from pity, vague nostalgia, and my love for alliteration. But this place has rubbed me the wrong way ever since they got rid of the creepy animatronics. That's what made it fun. It was like a haunted house play place. It was like going to Freddy Fazbear's 10 years before that was a thing. And once again, they serve alcohol. I mean, I know the 70s was a crazy time. People were legally drinking and driving their kids with no seatbelts to the Chuck E. Cheese to begin with. But the full bar inside just never ceases to amaze me. And I'm pretty sure that it's still there. Yep, here's their website. Oh, look, they have wine too. Phenomenal. I really need to move on, but imagine trying to explain Chuck E. Cheese to like a pilgrim or something. Okay, so there's this pizzeria, which is a place that sells pizza, which is like this Italian, it's awesome, okay, just trust me. And they have this giant rat man. Okay, well, he's not really a rat, but he's like a man that turns into a rat. Well, he's a robot too, which is like a man made of metal. Do you know what metal is? I don't know anything about pilgrims. But they let you get drunk and they have a full bar. Dude, let's go. We need to go. They have hamster tubes and child gambling and fuzzy dice. Billy Bob Broccoli is everything that Chuck E. Cheese wishes that he was. Billy Bob is the iconic animatronic bear that plays goofy music on a stage with other animatronic characters in the Showbiz Pizza Place's band, The Rock-afire Explosion. That was a mouthful. I was kind of worried about where to place Billy Bob at first, but I think the only place that he rightfully belongs is S. He inspired Chuck to get into the game, so automatic B. He never sold out, so at least A. But that score just keeps bumping up further when you realize how influential he really was. Five Nights at Freddy's, the cool episode of Regular Show, the entire mid-ass genre of mascot horror, it all has Billy Bob to call the OG. He's sort of the weird southern great uncle of the mascot genre. Plus, he features in the absolutely world-shattering Dick the Birthday Boy photo, which, if you didn't know, is actually Rich Evans from the YouTube channel Red Letter Media. I almost wish that I was joking because this timeline is getting a little too scripted, but that Rich Evans energy is just the cherry on top of the S. The Noid is likely one of the most infamous mascots of all time, rivaled only by a few others. But can we take a quick moment in the middle of this video to briefly discuss what makes a mascot controversial in the first place? Because I think this is something that needs to be said, and there's no point in waiting for a second part of this series to say it. So there's a certain trend of mascots being tainted or perverted in a way by outside forces. Sometimes this is mostly innocent, like Grimace's shake giving people seizures, but it can also be horrible, like when Mac Tonight's image was used in racist covers of songs, and YouTube likely won't even let me say what happened to Kuma, also known as Safety Bear. Sort of a similar thing has happened over time to Pepe the Frog as well. Mac Tonight is even recognized officially as a hate symbol. And that, to me, is heartbreaking. This may be a hot take, but I don't think that these characters need to be banished from history. These characters were not created to be perceived in the ways that they've been twisted, and in my opinion, it just sort of gives power to the people who perverted them by trying to forget that they ever existed to begin with. You can't surrender a mascot because of losers online, that's surrendering your mission. As a business, that mascot is your pirate flag. Many Domo memes early in its life have sort of a creepy undertone to them, but why should it matter? Yotsuba's image got ripped to be the fan-dubbed mascot for 4chan, which should have ruined the reputation of my favorite story of all time. But it didn't, because we don't let it. Mac tonight is cool, he likes to play the piano and sell Big Macs, that's all. If this turbulent history is too much for you to overlook, I can totally understand your aversion with the character. But like I said, I don't think that this has to be his end. Some people may even try to say that there's a positive side to what happened to Mac, as it sort of gave him up to the public in a way. But the Noid is not weird in the same way that Mac has become weird. Unlike Mac, Pepe, and Kuma, the Noid wasn't just ruined by weird people. The Noid was just always terrible and strange. If you don't have the misfortune of knowing anything about the Noid, it was a Domino's mascot from the 80s, and it's a rare example of what I call a pure personification, or PP mascot. The Noid is the physical embodiment of all the things that can go wrong when you're trying to deliver a pizza in 30 minutes or less. He's by design a foul little pizza goblin hell-bent on destroying people's days and halting the delivery of their hot, delicious dinner. The whole ad campaign was all about telling people to avoid the Noid. This alone is enough to place him firmly in F tier, where he will stay. Creepy commercials only made creepier via stop motion, a purposefully unpleasant design, and a few grating video games later, and nobody likes the Noid. Least of all, Kenneth Noid, a mentally ill man who is entirely convinced that the ad campaign was directed at him. Avoid the Noid. He thought the terrible character was a portrait of him. This was so distressing to him that on January 30th, 1989, he went into a Domino's and held 2 workers hostage for 5 hours, demanding that he speak to Domino's owners for stealing his name and likeness. At one point during this heated situation, he got hungry, and so he forced both the hostage workers to each go make him a pizza. During this time, they both slipped out, and Noid was quickly arrested. There's actually a few reasons why I just told you that story, and ranted about mascot controversy before that. Mainly, it's because I think someone completely unrelated from the brand, whether they be 4chan posters, 2chan posters, or genuinely, legitimately ill people, should not be the reason that a mascot goes extinct. Which is what most people think happened here, but luckily, it isn't. Personally, I think even without that baggage though, the Noid is horrible. It's a horrible mascot, but Domino's kind of keeps it around. T-shirts, stuffed toys, and another horrible game called the Noid's Super Pizza Shootout. Whoa, Domino's, that's a little in poor taste. That was one of the longest topics in the whole video by far, and all just for a resounding F, the first of the video. But I really want to hammer home that once again, this abysmal character earned that F all on his own, and not because of real life events that happened to be so interesting that they couldn't go unsaid. The CEO of Jack in the Box has always been one of my biased favorites. I've never been to a Jack in the Box, so I can't really relate the man to his mission, but he really plays on my love for the person with colorful thing on their head trope. He's been around for a long time, so he's got some deep lore.
And remember, it's $1.99 for a limited time!
Dad, what are you dreaming about?
Work stuff.
He's a good father.
But aren't we different in another way? Our fries are better than McDonald's.
That's my boy.
He keeps it real.
Pretzels, 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 pretzels.
Like, really real.
Okay, I'm back.
Whoa! Oh, I'm so ready for this recession to be over.
He's an ally.
How do you know if you're a lesbian?
Big and juicy and hot. That's where I'm coming from.
Thanks.
He's an absolute freak.
We could kiss.
What about this?
Oh.
Jack, that's for Max.
I think at one point or another he was the president, and he's potentially the most dedicated to his cause of all the mascots we've come across so far.
Get lost.
Sure, just try my food, apologize, and I'll go.
Beat it, clown!
Listen, punk! I've spent millions of dollars improving my kitchens to make our best burgers ever!
You're psycho!
This sounds crazy, but I think even if Jack in the Box serves the worst food imaginable, I could still justify putting Jack in S+ tier. That just makes him an even better seller. Good job, America. We finally earned another goat. Somebody tell me what their food is like in the comments though, for real. Is it good? These three kitties, known as the Denyas, are the mascot for Denny's in Japan. There's Denny's in Japan? Oh, Denyas, like, I get it now. Look at their website, this is awesome. I really wish I could read this, especially this part here with their names and what I'm guessing are descriptions about them. My favorite is this red one, but I like all three. If you can tell what this page says, please leave it in the comments, I would love to know. These guys are an easy A. The physical costumes are somehow way cuter than the rendered illustrations of them. I've never been to a Denny's either, so I can't even begin to imagine what a Denny's in Japan is like. Denny's to me is like somewhere between IHOP and Waffle House in vibe. Could a Denny's head in the comments tell me if I'm hot or cold there? Okay. This is really embarrassing to admit, but here I go. I was about to make fun of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man because... Look, I thought it was a real company, okay? I was gonna say, boo, you suck, Marshmallow Man. People only remember you because you were in Ghostbusters. Imagine falling so hard as a mascot that your company goes out of business and you have to live in the shadow of some goofy movie. But that's just it. Stay Puft isn't a brand from the 80s that went out of business. It was a brand made up for Ghostbusters. The Marshmallow Man is our very first in-universe mascot, and I, a fan of Ghostbusters, didn't even know. Listen, I'm probably just astronomically stupid, but now I gotta give the man an S. He's so iconic that I thought he was real. I mean, they talk about Twinkies in the movie and stuff, so why would this be fake? Plus, the way Ray talks about him in the movie is so convincing that I never even questioned it.
We used to roast Stay Puft marshmallows by the fire at Camp Wakanda.
Well, since our first in-universe mascot was from Ghostbusters, we might as well do the Ghostbusters mascot himself, Mowgli the Ghost. I know I said that with kind of a confidence to it, but I did not know his name before I researched this, and I doubt anyone but Dan Aykroyd did. He's iconic, and his design is insanely friendly. You know, there's not really any other way to put it. He just looks so chill and cute. He looks like he came out of Adventure Time or something. B tier, free my mans. So I never really put much thought into what the Reddit mascot was. I guess I always thought that it was a robot, but it's actually an alien named Snoo. I think the reason this one's so upsetting to me is that aliens are like my favorite types of mascots a lot of the time, but this one is just so flavorless and ugly. To me, nothing is more fitting for this thing than the cold, dark depths of E tier, the graveyard of the Mascots tier list. But then, when I was researching this guy, I stumbled across r/mascots, which, let's be honest, will probably be an asset I use in the next part of this series, so I'll give you a hand from the fate worse than death tier and move you up to D, Snoo, but I still don't like you, and I never, ever will. Looks like it's time for my favorite game. Does this count? Where we try to rationalize if something counts as a mascot. This time, Twitter. Originally, this bird was known as Larry from its original conception all the way to its famous and final 2012 redesign, where this name was lost. If you're curious, it was a pun on Larry Bird. Then, from 2012 to its death, the Twitter bird's new name was Twitter. The bird was a Twitter. The Twitter team did a famously incredible job with their branding. The homepage button was a birdhouse, posts were called tweets. This wasn't something that was forced on everyone, like when you have to say you want a gotta have it size instead of a large. This was something people embraced and really liked. Despite what was on the actual app, Twitter's branding was always light, friendly, approachable, memorable, timeless. I'm not gonna ruin my new favorite video by talking about that but just know that he not only passed up on, but threw away what is commonly referred to as a marketing holy grail. Twitter, you will be missed. You can relax in A tier while you await the pearly gates. Actually, why don't you go on down to B? I just remembered this is Twitter I'm defending after all. I wasn't kidding though, this icon is like scientifically flawless. It would be higher if they kept his name as Larry and if they had a costumed person that would like breakdance or some shit, I don't know. They underused the mascot back when they had him, but that's kind of what made him so chill, you know? He wasn't bothering you. Unlike somebody. This video has been surprisingly difficult for me to script because I keep having to rethink everything I know. I'm really conflicted about what does and doesn't count as a mascot sometimes, and also a lot of the characters that I'm choosing specifically to poop all over keep ending up being actually cool once I get to know them. Let's see if that's the case for Duo, the Duolingo bird, who I have a similar sort of vague disdain for. Something I really want to drive home here is that I'm talking about mascots, not companies. Some of the companies I've talked about today are almost assuredly real-life supervillains. I mean, come on, one of my favorite mascots is owned by McDonald's. Duolingo really shot themselves in the foot pulling that AI stunt recently, but you and I both gotta remember that this isn't about Duolingo, it's about Duo. In his earliest incarnations, way back in 2010 and 2011, his face actually spelled Duo. Wow, how cool is that? It's like Ham Cocoricho from the beginning. I seriously think that they fumbled the bag by dropping this design element. You could have made it cuter and still kept that for sure. And they didn't even make it cuter, they made it terrifying. Then they watered it down, and then 5 years later actually bothered to make it half-past appealing. And I still think it's butt ugly. I don't like when you can tell that a character is made out of vectors. This looks too simple, too clean. I want to see art drawn by a person with pixels on a screen. Not mathematical equations to make the most scientifically profitable design of all time. Kinda reminds me of when they fired half their staff for some stupid AI, you pieces of... Okay, the bird. Yeah, he sucks. Thank God my bad vibes were right for once. The mascot for the character is probably the best iteration of him. It's got a good design and it's fun to see him out in the world. And he did reveal that he was actually Sukuna that one time and cleaved another mascot in two, but nah, try again next time. Duo always comes across as a little attention-seeking to me. I know that's what all mascots are kind of designed to do. It's their job to seek your attention, but you want it to actually work. You want to like seeing them. And Duo does not make me want to pay to learn another language. He makes me want to sin. So, I don't know anything about the Cult of the Lamb game. I think I saw on Twitter that they added sex to it or something. I don't know. I would have never even thought of putting this character in this video until seeing this picture though. I'm afraid of what allegations will befall on me if I say that I really admire the craftsmanship it takes to make a good full-body felt costume, so I'm not gonna say that. But this is still really cool. They're gonna lose some points for being nothing but a Twitter meme to me though. Sorry. This actually is the only video game character on the list, which, I'm sorry, I know that's going to be controversial. I just don't know where to draw the line. Like, is Freddy Fazbear a mascot? Of course. You can make an argument for a lot of quote-unquote mascot horror characters. Another rung down from that, though, would be Gex and Bubsy and weird old stuff like that. They give off real mascot energy. But if we're inviting them, we might as well talk about Sonic and Kirby, Mario, Mega Man, Rayman. It's just hard to know when to stop, you know? It's a slippery slope. Because what? Can I put Heavy from TF2 on here? He's practically the game's mascot, but like, that just doesn't feel right to me. Leave in the comments what you think I should do when it comes to video game IPs. To please all you youngsters though, why don't we talk about some other virtual mascots? Dude, I wanted a modern one. Microsoft was trying to tackle a problem at the turn of the century. A problem of people, specifically old people, not being able to understand what the heck is going on in this computer box their sonny hooked up for them.
Windows. Use the mouse to drag it. Drag it. Drag it. Drag it. Drag it.
Their solution? Clip It, the animated office assistant, a funky little character that acted as a tour guide to Microsoft Office, there to help whenever you need. And you heard that right, Clip It. Many people, me included, affectionately refer to this paperclip as Clippy, but it was apparently always Clip It. Is it the Mandela effect? No, that's not real. I really don't know how to rank Clip-Ass, to be honest. I kinda like him, but he's impossible to make a costume out of, and he's not even really a traditional mascot. His purpose is more of a guide than an advertisement. Plus, he isn't even really all that original. He was based off an old character the company had used back in '95 called Microsoft Bob. As cute as the character design is, if you were there, you'd remember just how annoying this thing actually was. The Smithsonian Magazine called Clip It one of the worst software design blunders in the annals of computing, and Time Magazine included Clip It in a 2010 article listing the 50 worst inventions of all time. I mean, it's no nuclear bomb, but it's definitely E tier, the saddest tier of them all. Okay, cool, something new. Cool Frog is a guy called Speedo Sausage's mascot here on the World Wide Web, and he's become a big hit with the kids these days on their damn phone. I respect and admire Cool Frog's game, but I think I'm gonna have to cap it kinda low. If you made a costume of Cool Frog, it wouldn't be recognizable. It would be kind of indistinguishable from any old frog, and we can't have that. He's a wonderful little guy that does his job well, but these are the big leagues, kid, and you gotta be able to deal. No regular old frog is making it past C. LS Mark is a YouTuber who primarily talks about cartoons. He's got some good stuff on his channel, and there's no bad blood here, but I gotta say, I'm not a big fan of the Fairly OddParents OC mascot. First of all, because Butch Hartman, his style, his face, pretty much anything that makes me think about him makes me frustrated. If you don't know why, good, this guy sucks. He's not like Dan Schneider type of reprehensible, but he's not a good guy either. Permanently chaining your image to somebody else's IP is just never a good look. There are some exceptions. I like Uncivilized Elk's Adventure Time OC, but Adventure Time and its creators are pretty unproblematic, and also Elk talks about practically nothing but Adventure Time, so it's a lot more thematically appropriate. I'm gonna have to say D. My favorite thumbnails of his are when it tends to lean more into looking like a general cartoony style, and not a carbon paper tracing of Ginger Timmy Turner. On to another YouTuber's mascot, we have Nano the 8-Bit Monkey from Brandon James Greer's channel. Brandon is a really talented pixel artist, and I've been following him for quite a few years now, and I've always thought his monkey character Nano was just adorable, and it really lends itself to his pixel art style. He usually likes to work at a really small scale so that every single pixel matters, and this leads to his pixel art process feeling more like solving a puzzle than drawing something. I think that ideology really comes across in Nano's design. It's very tight and stylized and honestly just kind of flawless. I'm gonna give Nano an A tier. All of these YouTubers will have links down below, by the way. But you should go check out Brandon's videos even if you think you aren't really that into pixel art. Why is Tamatoa here? I think the mascot for Moana, if it had one, would be Moana. Oh, I see. Shea Frillis Productions is a YouTuber who primarily talks about animation media, but his channel started off as more personal, silly stuff, and then was mainly YouTube poops. One of his favorite things to edit and joke around with on the early days of his channel was the song Shiny from the film Moana, sung of course by the character Tamatoa. This would become sort of a symbol of recognition for his channel. It became his profile picture, and soon it was just the thing people identified him with. It seemed to stick because to this day, 7 years later, Tamatoa is still Shea Frillis' mascot. I'm gonna be totally honest, I really don't like these types of mascots. This is likely just my bias as an original mascot myself, but I never understood the desire to do this. It also does feel stupid to bash Shea for picking this as his identity when he kind of didn't. It was just what caught on after an extended meme that led to his popularity. I think 9 times out of 10, this is just a thing that happens, not a deliberate choice. Soon enough, you're the Tamatoa guy, and you're happy enough with that, so why change it? But there is always the option to go ahead and make the deliberate choice of crafting your own Sona, or OC, or mascot. Some people never wind up doing this. One of the most famous examples of stubborn marketing is Moist Critical, who will rot away before he ever changes his horrible name and profile picture on this godforsaken website. I think the reason that it rubs me the wrong way is because I think that Shea Frillis is more than a shiny YouTube pooper. I mean, he's not even really the guy that talks about just animation anymore. He likes to talk about games and movies and theater and whatever else he wants. In my opinion, he's outgrown this character. I notice this sort of thing happens all the time. Why is the Real Jims, a Simpsons YouTuber, Yoshi? Why is Emplemon Admiral Akbar when he's already got his Green Simpsons thing going on? Because it's always been this way, and some people have no desire to change what works. I like all 3 of these creators, but I think that the content they make and the personalities they have far outweigh and outstretch these images that they all sit under. And I guess all I'm trying to say is that I want them to be themselves. Their answer to these questions I'm posing is likely as simple as, but I like what I am. And to that, all I've got to say is, fair, man. Totally fair. Some people really like tradition. Me, not so much. It doesn't enrage me like the stuff in F tier does, so I won't give you that, even though taking another character as your mascot is just corny to me. I mean, that's what Leafy did. E tier. If you're out there as a YouTuber rocking somebody else's character too, this is a message for you. I think you should either pivot, introduce a brand new face of your channel and deal with the backlash later. Emplemon has recently been using this Green Simpsons Sona, which, while still derivative, is so much better than him just being Admiral Akbar. Like I said, if I was you, I would pivot and introduce a brand new face of the channel, dealing with the backlash later, which, let's be honest, won't be anything more than a few hundred nerds angry at nothing for a few weeks. As long as your videos are getting better, nobody will care. Then, your editors don't have to stitch every single frame of a lobster talking together like it's a YouTube poop to make you emote in a video. Or, you could take it the safe and respectable route and design a very similar but legally distinct copy. I mean, if any of these guys wanted to sell merch, they'd basically already have to do that, so do it sooner rather than later. Okay, mascot advice with Jallo is now out of session, and I really don't want to make it seem like I hate the guy. That Megamind video was funny as shit, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a fan. I would collab, and that's why I feel like I needed to be brutally honest about this mascot he's chosen. But why don't we get back to something a lot more traditional? In this pilot episode of the Mascots tier list, I'm really trying to cover all my bases in terms of types of mascots. And I would be remiss if I didn't call to attention a few of the many PSA mascots we've been graced with over the years. Characters that were created to teach a specific lesson to children, be it bike safety, street safety, electric safety, or fire safety. Smokey the Bear is a face many of you will recognize, as he's likely the biggest safety icon of the entire mascot world. His campaign started back in 1944, making Smokey and the USFSWPC the longest running PSA in US history. After Smokey's inception, America was thrust into World War II, and many firemen had to become soldiers. At the time, the US was more vulnerable than ever to disasters, so it was nothing short of everywhere the message of being cautious with fire. Smokey was there to tell you all about it in TV, comics, billboards, you name it. Some people think Smokey is actually a bad influence because controlled wildfires are actually kind of an important step in our ecosystem, but this is something that the United States Forest Service knows. It's on their website. This is even why the slogan "Only you can prevent wildfires" was changed from "Only you can prevent forest fires," because surprisingly, controlled burning can actually be quite good for some areas. I don't know if I'm just hateful or pessimistic, but I've gone into so many of these expecting to rant about how lame they are, but then I learned about them and their influence, and suddenly I'm like, wait, why are so many of these A tier? I'm gonna have to say Smokey is B though. I would say A, but I think Smokey should either be more bear or more man. Put a shirt on, bro. The beer gut is unbecoming. Or he needs to double down on chest day. Or they could have made him look cute like actual bears do. So you really gotta walk the line with PSA mascots in the way that they're kind of really easy to push over. Most of them are so silly and cheesy that as a kid you're like, screw you Smokey, what if I want to start a fire? But whenever Louie the Lightning Bug came on, I sat my pink ass down and listened. Lightning Bug, who's also a light bull, electric safety, it writes itself. A tier. You gotta play it safe around those power lines. This is Joe Camel, one of the hardest character designs ever to be created. And he's made it his mission to sell you cigarettes. In a way, it's sort of the opposite of a PSA mascot. I'm not gonna say I feel pity for Big Tobacco, but trying to market sticks of cancer doesn't necessarily sound fun to me. Camel is actually the oldest US cigarette brand. They were released in 1913, and the camel on the box has always been known as Old Joe. Many say this doesn't really count as a mascot. You know, he's obviously not the same as the tried and true mascot for the character, which was created in 1974 by Nicholas Price for a campaign that would be run in France later that year. But I disagree. Mickey Mouse has been Mickey Mouse no matter what he's looked like. I mean, his name is even Old Joe. This is Joe Camel, and if not, it's like his dad or something. Many will call me wrong, but I believe the Joe Camel mascot has existed for 111 years. This alone makes him incredibly OG, one of, if not the oldest mascot on the tier list as of now. Joe is gonna need more than Unk status to get a good score though, but luckily, this guy has it all. Normally, I wouldn't condone just reading from articles in your videos, but I simply need to read this excerpt from Joe Camel's wiki page to you today. In December 1991, the Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA, published a study in which young children were asked to match brand logos with their products. The study showed that among children age 6, 91.3% matched Joe Camel with cigarettes. Nearly the same amount who matched the Disney Channel logo with Mickey Mouse. On May 28, 1997, the FTC concluded that the Joe Camel campaign was targeted to youth and requested a court order to end the campaign. Joe Camel was too good. His smoke was too tough. He was just as iconic as Mickey Mouse in the Disney Renaissance era. The success of the Joe Camel image is something that is literally studied by academics. I honestly don't care if it makes me evil, but Joe is going to get an S+. His only crime was being too iconic, too awesome. But they could never make me hate you, Joe. Now, I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. I've done a lot of other things, but that isn't one of them. But I can still recognize his charm. Millions before me have probably succumbed to that charm and became addicted to his love. But that's on them. Not Joe. Not Joe. Fuck Limu Emu. If you have the utter misfortune of being plagued with the biblical torture that is living in an area with a Liberty Mutual, and by extension these f*** commercials, I will be sending you a purple heart in the mail after you finish this video. I am a commercial defender at heart. I have been my whole life. I guess I'm old now, but you used to not be able to pause whenever you want, so when I was younger, I liked having a little break to go pee and grab a snack and see the funny Gecko and Mayhem and my childhood crush Flo from Progressive. This was many years ago, okay? Maybe it's just because I was a stupid kid, but for some reason, insurance commercials used to actually kind of bang. The decline of television, though, brought with it a decline in good TV shows and, of course, commercials. There is no commercial zeitgeist now, but back in the day, everybody kind of saw the same stuff, so good commercials became inside jokes. But along with TV as a whole, this all began to nosedive hard in the mid-2010s. They're still making this poor lady be the insurance girl for the rest of her life. They attempted some horrible box guy that I'll get to someday. The Aflac duck got hit by a bus, Lily almost got harassed off of television, and they're still dragging out this Jake from State Farm thing. Seriously, how many sales are you guys making from keeping this good-for-nothing character around for so many years? The insurance mascot game has fallen from grace, the likes of which all mascotry has never seen before, and it really culminates in this lifeless, annoying, cash-grabbing, attention-seeking nothing burger of a mascot. A buddy cop duo with the most dickless loser alive and one of the most notoriously shitty animals on Earth. Insurance jargon is so gobsmackingly boring that whenever it's not coming from a cool lizard with a British accent, I just want to use a fire poker to rupture my eardrums every time this guy talks about helping people customize and save with Liberty Mutual. Well, this guy's doing his best. I mean, it's not his fault Liberty Mutual still thinks it's 2007. Actually, no. Fuck you, David Hoffman. When you read the script for this promo campaign, you should have blown up the whole damn building. This whole thing is just a travesty, and it must be stopped. If I can congratulate you on one thing, you broke a new record. You are officially the worst mascot of all time. Similar to how my channel acts as a beacon of honor for Mac Tonight and all his disciples, I want this video to be a disturbing bloodbath for the one guy that likes Limu Emu and Doug. You are not welcome here. I was originally planning to end this video on my rage for Liberty Mutual, but then I remembered that the Olympics are happening right now, and wouldn't you know it, the Summer Games tends to have mascots. In fact, the Olympics has had a history of using mascots since as far back as the 30s with a real Scottish Terrier named Smokey, born in the Olympic Village right before the Games. There aren't enough slots left in this video to talk about all of the Olympic mascot history before hitting 100, so why don't we talk about a few and leave some for part 2 and onwards. Starting with Schuss of the 1968 France Olympics, a funky little character skiing. This was really the first official mascot character of the Olympics. It was before it was really a thing, so they didn't even know what to call him. He was just known as the character. It seems to me there was some sort of competition held to see what his design would be. And Alain Lafargue, its designer, who I can't seem to find any trace of online, made him in less than a single day before the submission. Maybe Alain just works well under pressure because Schuss is amazing to me. It's simple and kinetic, everything a sports mascot should be. Plus, it's adorable, and it spawned the tradition of games having mascots at all. For that, Schuss gets an S. I really hope people don't look too into, like, how half of these are rated, like, based on alliteration. It's not even on purpose, it, like, takes me over. Going now to the 1980 Summer Games held in Moscow, we have the very Russian Misha the Bear, which of course is short for
Mikhail Potapych Toptigin.
Misha is adorable, and the illustrations of him just look so distinct and stylish. It's not perfect though. Sort of similar to Clip It, it's kind of like hard to translate into a physical costume. All the physical representations of Misha are much less cute and stylized as you may expect, but this is kind of a big deal for, well, mascots. At the end of the Olympics, there was this big Misha that they tied to balloons and let drift off into the sky, which apparently is a very significant and emotional moment in Russian sports culture. I think it looks a little funny, but anyone who actually saw it isn't in this channel's demographic, so I don't think I'll be upsetting many people here today. Misha is a good representative of his country and is a super pleasant character, but because of lack of cool costumes, I'm gonna have to cap it at like a low B. Izzy is short for What Is It, which is an apt name for this thing. This is the Olympics mascot for the 1996 games held in Atlanta, Georgia. And I gotta say it, this is the most 96 Atlanta thing they could have possibly designed. This indeterminate creature got mixed reviews at the time, literally gaining its name from Atlanta children being confused as to what the creature even was. It's just sort of nothing. It's its own thing. Another peepee. Real, pure, direct personification mascots like this are kinda rare, so I gotta applaud the effort. And despite its more than dated design, and the fact that I still agree with the mixed reviews it got at the time, I will say that I am more positive leaning on Izzy. I don't think it's bad. I'll give it a high C because I do think it does its job well. Like, this looks like a worldly mascot. I think they should have just made it a globe though. If it was Izzy the Earth, I honestly think nobody would have been confused and everybody would have liked it. What's a more fitting mascot for the Olympics than the world itself? I've done a lot of citation in this video, but I think the Olympics website is going to explain this one a hell of a lot better than I could. According to the story by Michael Moore-Pergot, Wenlock's metallic look is explained by the fact that he was made from one of the last drops of steel used to build the Olympic Stadium in London. The light on his head is based on those found on London's famous black cabs. The shape of his forehead is identical to that of the Olympic Stadium roof. His eye is the lens of a camera, filming everything he sees. On his wrists, he wears 5 bracelets in the colors of the Olympic rings. And the 3 points on his head represent the 3 places on the podium for the medal winners. I've got 3 words for you, London. Doing too much. All of those little details are great, but they were added to a flawed and kind of weird design. What percent of people in 2012 London do you think actually liked this? I'll reckon not many. There is a fine and indescribable boundary for when a mascot is good weird and when it's bad weird. It's high risk, high reward to make something this out there work. The reason that there are so many good yet also weird and vague Japanese mascots is because there's been a 50-year-long movement entirely about maximizing cuteness. So who cares what Kuroshio-kun is? He's A tier. But clearly, other parts of the world without that experience can tend to make more mascots that are less conventionally cute. Not that Japan doesn't have some ugly ones. No, believe me, they have most of the worst too. But anyway, Wenlock just isn't very appealing to me. I would honestly feel weird and conflicted trying to be proud of him if he represented a group that I was a part of. E tier. Mirai Tawa was the 2020 Olympics mascot, and can you guess what city it came from? It would be obvious even if it wasn't written all over its face. I gotta say, this is my one big criticism of Mirai Tawa. I think it really could have gone without that stamp on its forehead. Coming straight from the Olympics site, Mirai Tawa is supposed to resemble a kawaii chessboard, mixing futurism with tradition, which in a way is what Tokyo itself is all about. This may be controversial, but I think Mirai Tawa is a little flavorless. Firstly, I dropped the logo. I don't know if that was a requirement, but it doesn't look good. Then, I would have flipped these things on its face and turned them into cool sunglasses. That's what S tier looks like. But all Mirai Tawa knows is the cool wind of B tier on his big, unshielded bug eyes. Okay, so straight down the rabbit hole on this 2024 Paris Games one. But we're not going to start in France. No, we're going to start in Turkey. Back before it was Turkey, it was Anatolia, and there was a kingdom there called Phrygia. Before this even, some Iranian guys made these awesome hats, kickstarting all of this. The Phrygians found and adopted and loved these hats so much that they wound up going down in history as Phrygian caps. These hats were very common during the era of the French Revolution. This silly little hat might just look like a cute thing a wizard's apprentice might wear, but this is an important symbol in French culture. From the sounds of it, it's not like Uncle Sam or even like Bald Eagle level popular, but it is pretty big, I guess. So there you have it, the mascot is a hat, a Phrygian hat. There's a whole bunch of them and they're called the Phryges. I think it's cute. I like how their arms work. The main one is a girl with a prosthetic leg, and that's just like thug-ass character design 101. A tier. Deep lore, but it was fun to find out about, and it led to a cute design and a simple answer to everyone's question. Hey man, can I ask you a question? What is this thing?
It's one of those French hats.
Oh, well, I can see it now. What about this one?
Ew, what is that? We didn't let that in, did we?
Ho ho ho! Okay, so this one, Mascot 100, is my final vote for the most divisive entry in this video. I only get to talk about 55 mascots in this first part, and I picked Santa? No Garfield, no Tony the Tiger, no Mr. Peanut, no Mr. Clean, no Chester Cheetah, no Burger King, no Wendy, but Santa? Yes. In fact, in the next 2 minutes, I will convince you that Santa Claus is the greatest mascot of all time. So Santa, much like Max Headroom, is a Coca-Cola mascot. But this wasn't something chosen on a whim in the 90s to dig themselves out of a financial pit. Santa has been the face of Coca-Cola since the 1920s. It's always been within Coke's brand to market itself as a holiday drink. But the reason I think this is so important, and strangely controversial, is that a strong case can be made that Santa Claus as we know him only exists because of Coca-Cola. Back in the early 1900s, Santa's design was actually pretty variable. Many times he was depicted as a small elf-like man or a sailor. Coca-Cola decided to commission a man from Michigan named Haddon Sundblom to illustrate some ads for their company depicting Santa. And when Haddon was developing these ads, he turned to Clement Clarke Moore's 1822 poem A Visit from St. Nicholas for inspiration. Because Coca-Cola was, and still kind of is, the biggest name in business around the world, marketing of Santa as a big jolly man with a beard clad in red and white was suddenly everywhere on Earth. I can't find whether this depiction of Santa or one similar existed before this time, but it's indisputable that Coca-Cola popularized Santa. Now, if this was a different video, I would say that the magic of Christmas as a whole is gone now because it's all just an ad for Coke, and I would promptly, throw myself off the Golden Gate Bridge. But on the Mascot Tier List, I think invading Christianity, kicking Jesus out, and saying that December 25th is actually Big Fat Coca-Cola Man Day, and pulling that off to the extent that this is Santa, and he is the face of Christmas, like, that's the greatest marketing scheme of all time. Another 20 trillion to Coke. They got Santa. And they didn't just get him, they kind of made him. It's not like they bought him, they commissioned a real artist to make an interpretation of a royalty-free character for their company, and it undoubtedly became the greatest marketing decision of all time. And the greatest part of this is that Santa is still royalty-free. He belongs to the people just as much as any corporation. S+. Welcome to the top, Your Highness, the godfather of all mascots. At the end of the video here, I really want you to keep in mind that there are, entirely independent of one another, hundreds of Yuduchara, food icons, sports mascots, and much, much more that I want to talk about. I guarantee that I missed most of your favorites, so please leave in the comments who you think I need to discuss. I've got a huge ongoing list of mascots to eventually touch on, and I've got no qualms about adding to it, so keep them coming. Next video, we'll be looking at female mascots, more gaming mascots, more YouTubers, food, sports, and my Patreons are even going to get to hand-pick mascots that I can't say no to talking about. If you would like to subject me to that fate, my Patreon link is right down in the description, or you can head to jallomoth.com. Even if you don't got spare money to throw at your boy, you can still suggest mascots, either in this video's comment section or in my Discord server. If you follow the link in the description, you can enter the Plaza, which is our general chat, click on the Threads button, and find the Mascot Suggestions thread. These are the absolute best ways to get your opinion heard. It can be really, really difficult to find information on more rare local mascots, so if you're from middle of nowhere USA, or a country that doesn't get much mascot glory like the US or Japan, please submit some of your local mascots. If you can, give me pictures and info about them too. My final call to action is this. What YouTubers would you want to see cover a mascot in part 2? Imagine if I got Quentin Reviews to talk about Garfield or something. That's a legendary pull. Stuff like that. Any ideas? This video took a long time to make and was incredibly tedious, but taking a note from Brandon James Greer, it's like solving a puzzle. And when it's finally all together, it's so clear as to why we challenge ourselves. How many parts do you think this series would need to be before I ran out of mascots? Is that even possible? So, if you want to see me spend the actual rest of my life reviewing mascots, hit subscribe. I've been your host, Jalomarius Mothmane. Have a good night, and stay curious.